Hey guys, what's up? NullRage here, and today we're taking one last look at Blade, going over some of the changes that have happened in his stint on Test Center here, his development stint. There have been a few changes, some of them bigger than others, but anyway, let's dive in and have a look at that. First things first is we've got the hero synergies for Blade have been finalized. His level 25 giving health on hit, and his level 50 giving 3% attack speed. This health on hit will, of course, scale with your level. Let's see if we can turn it on here and see exactly how much. It looks like it's 21 health on hit at level 60, and that actually is not a huge amount, but that 3% attack speed could be pretty good for those of you that do not cap out your attack speed with your gear or whatever. Alright, so his skills, the first thing we want to go over is Thirst. The Thirst mechanic initially, well, anyway, we won't talk about whatever it initially did because it's changed, and if you want to know what it used to do, then there's a video up for that, but let's go over what it does now, what it's going to do when it goes live. Thirst increases as Blade is in combat, increasing his desire to feed. When Thirst reaches full, Blade becomes starving, reducing damage by 10% and causing 5% of Blade's maximum health to be lost per second. While starving, 2% of Blade's maximum health is restored on hit, and you can activate the serum to eliminate all thirst, reducing it back to 0 and restoring Blade's vampiric strength. So it is now sort of a detriment mechanic that you want to try to avoid at all costs. You can, anytime you're in combat, you're going to be gaining that thirst mechanic, and then once you cap out, your screen's going to glow red, and you're going to start losing HP. Then you'll need to use the serum here to eliminate that, and that is going to increase now anytime you're in combat, not just when you're around bleeding foes like it used to. You used to have to attack things with either Whiplash, Glaive Orbit, or Whittle to Kindling, or Unleash Glaive. Anything that would apply that grievous wounds, that is no longer a dependent factor. You know, that's no longer dependency for the thirst mechanic. Anytime you're in combat, you will be gaining that thirst mechanic, so you will have to use serum even if you're not using the grievous wounds skills. Alright, the next big thing is the serum itself has had a little bit of changes to it's now giving you that attack and move speed from the serum itself. Every time you use this, you're going to get a 3-second buff, plus an additional 5 seconds if activated when starving, of 10% increased damage, and attack speed and move speeds increase by 10% as well as removing the thirst mechanic and giving you that regenerate health as well. So this will be a active heal kind of thing. The passive side of this sort of remains the same, giving you some damage negated, some dodge, some defense, the chance to evade, and then the revive mechanic whenever you get defeated, and then of course Constitution as well. Now you've got the 3 different specializations that you can choose. You've got In Control, which is going to cause you to gain thirst 50% slower. Also increase that damage negated by 5%, so it goes up to 25%, giving you another 5% base health, and you will constantly be regenerating HP, 2% of your maximum HP per second. This is going to be a pretty good thing if you want to build your blade out to be a tank. Alternatively, you've got the Only When Necessary, which is going to allow you to increase the duration of the serum's buff. So you've got buff duration of 8 seconds now instead of the 3 seconds that it was before, plus the additional 5 seconds is going to be pretty nice, keeping that 10% damage going for more time, and attack speed and move speed, you know, keeping that buff up longer. This is pretty nice, and also giving you that restore 30% maximum spirit. Now this is going to allow you to possibly look at gearing with things like the Macron crystal instead of your typical legendary or something, increasing your spirit because you're going to restore off your maximum spirit. This will be a nice way to play with those effects and gearing to keep your spirit management going on. Then you've got Never Sated, which is sort of the damage output kind of thing. Thirst 50% faster when your Grievous Wounds effects deal damage. So now that's going to play into the Grievous Wounds. Anytime you're hitting, or anytime you're dealing damage with Grievous Wounds, making enemies bleed, then you're going to gain Thirst faster. Damage is no longer reduced while starving, so that 10% damage reduction from starving is gone. And increases your health regeneration on hit while starving by 50% when you hit an enemy while starving. Gain a stack of Bloodlust, 1 second cooldown, 10 stacks at maximum. Now when you get that Bloodlust stacked up, then you're going to want to use the serum to gain this huge damage boost. All stacks are consumed, increasing damage by 5% and critical and brutal damage by 10% per stack. That's if you get all 10 stacks of that Bloodlust, that's 50% damage and 100% critical and brutal damage. That is huge if played right. So that'll be pretty interesting to play with, and it also gives you a little bit of spirit restore on hit. This is going to be something you want to, get into that frenzied state, that thirst state, and stack that Bloodlust up. Have I got it? Yeah, I've got it triggered. Oh, right, I want to make things bleed to get it faster. There we go. And now anytime you hit targets in this state, which I should have hit them 10 times now, then you want to use that serum, and that's going to give you that increased attack speed as well as huge amounts of damage boost. Very nice. Alright, so that's the specializations. Let's move on to the individual skills and how they may have changed. A lot of things as far as the individual skills have stayed the same, but there has been a pretty amazing change for Whiplash here. Whiplash no longer requires you to stand still, and you can now move while using it. It's going to make it a great melee AoE sort of run and clear, just knock everything out kind of skill. A lot of the skills have had their animation increased, or animation times, I guess, decreased. Anyway, the animations are shorter, and therefore the skills come out faster. That's Glaive Orbit, Unleash Glaive, and a few of the other cooldown skills. I think Stake Through the Heart and Stake Thrower, just about everything has been sped up, so it all goes through its animation quite a bit quicker than it used to. Alright, so Glaive Orbit, still basically the same. It's going to throw out some physical damage and apply that Grievous Wounds. Any means necessary is going to be your melee single target Spirit Spender. It's going to get that increased damage and attack speed when you use the serum. So after you use that serum for, I guess it's 3 seconds and then 5 seconds if activated while starving, then you'll do increased damage with any means necessary. Where's that at? There it is. And they've sort of cleaned up the animation quite a bit on this, I think. It looks very nice. Now we've got Stake Through the Heart. Hasn't really changed too much since its early iteration, except that it has gained a execute mechanic. You'll notice I keep using the serum here to clear that Bloodlust. That's going to be something you're doing. Anytime you're playing Blade, you're always going to have to be mindful of that thirst mechanic. Alright, so physical damage, 50% increased damage against bleeding enemies, and gaining an execute mechanic on it as well, causing it to do extra damage to targets at low HP. So you want to use Glaive Orbit to apply that bleed, and then Stake Through the Heart. And you want to use this every time it's on cooldown or off cooldown because it's going to be your big, heavy hitting ability. And you always want to make sure that you're hitting a bleeding target. You've applied that bleed before you use it for that extra boost to damage. There we go. Alright, let's clear that one more time. Now we've got the advanced technique, and this has received a lot of iteration, and I think they've got it in the perfect place. It used to cause you to leap in, but the leap that was on this has actually been pulled off and put onto its own skill over here in Party Crasher, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But advanced technique now allows you to have three different attacks that go on. The first wave of it, you're going to activate it 3 times. The first time you activate it, you're going to gain invulnerability and invisibility for 4 seconds. This is unaffected by power duration. Second time you use it, you're going to do a huge AoE slash and immobilize any targets affected. And the third is going to allow you to do a flourish of physical damage, 3 hits of it, and finally activate that cooldown. This is a 40-second cooldown, but you can activate it 3 times before it goes on cooldown. So let's just run through. So he's got that moon animation. He's got that slash for the second activation, and then oh wow, I didn't use it fast enough. So you will have to be quick on that. We'll show it one more time here in about 30 seconds. You'll want to use this fairly rapid succession, but it's going to give you that invulnerability and invisibility, allowing you to sneak up on your target or something. You know, maybe you pop that invulnerability and then party crash right into them, and then pop the second 2 activations of that for extra damage on a single target. Alright, so here we go. It's about off cooldown. Let's get that third strike to actually show up and zoom out so I can see the moon. There we go. And then some fancy sword work there at the end. That's pretty nice in my opinion. And since they've pulled off the Party Crasher here for the leap, that's you can use this anytime. I like that a lot. Alright, now we've got Toxin Loaded Grenade. Hasn't really changed since its early iteration. It's just going to do some physical damage, and then it's going to apply that toxin that will, in addition to causing targets to take extra damage from grievous wounds, they will also explode on death. This is going to be very nice for clearing out, you know, AoE. You take out one single target, and then he explodes and takes out everything around him. That's going to be pretty cool. And Hyper Toxin Grenade will be the ranged version of that. Speaking of ranged, let's move on to the range tree. Everything out here. I need serum, need to keep that. Alright, so Whittle into Kindling. It's a frontal AoE cone that you can target, move around, spin around anytime you want, and dealing physical damage twice per second, also proccing that grievous wounds. Pump action shotgun is, well, it's just pump action, I guess. It's going to do frontal cone AoE, but it's also got the ability to be a long-ranged attack if you want it to. Anything right up here in front of you is going to take some frontal cone, and then it, you know, has the ability to be a long-range attack too. This is going to fire out one projectile through the middle of that shotgun blast. So that's pretty cool. If you need to be at range, you can be at range, but it'll also clear out anything in front of you. Unleash Glaive is your basic bouncing attack, and the cooldown from this has been removed since its initial iteration. So you can throw this out as much as you want, and it's going to apply that bleed. It's going to bounce between targets. Love the bouncing attacks. Very fun skill. Next up, we've got Hand Cannon. Physical damage, and it's your basic ranged attack. It's also going to gain increased critical and brutal damage when you use the serum. There's that. Alright, then we've got Stake Thrower. This is going to be your equivalent, your ranged equivalent of Stake Through the Heart, which you're going to want to use every time it's off cooldown, but you'll also want to be sure that you're attacking a bleeding enemy. So you'll apply that bleed, and then you'll shoot him with Stake Thrower, doing 2 hits physical damage and doing extra damage against bleeding targets. There's that. So he just pulls out the shotgun, which he has modified with some stakes on the end there. You can, if I zoom in just right, there we go. Get the angle just right. You can see that he's got some stakes mounted here on the end of his shotgun. He's got that modified barrel. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Alright, then we've got Namesake, which is just going to be him throwing a whole bunch of knives. Let's see if I can get this on the bar here. So, oh, the AoE for that final hit went up a lot since its initial iteration. Uh-oh. I have switched my bars around. There we go. Alright, we're good. You're going to do 10 hits of physical damage in a line, and then you're going to throw that final knife, or rather, you're going to throw it up in the air and then kick it through the enemy's face for a huge amount of damage. While you're channeling this power, you're going to deal or take 80% less damage, and that's got a cooldown of 10 seconds. That's half the cooldown of the advanced technique, so the ranged signature is going to, it's got half the cooldown, so the damage is a little bit lower on the range cooldown, but you get to use it twice as much. So that might even out, actually. Anyway, here's one more time with Namesake. And I like that they increase the range on that final knife, so you don't have to worry too much about it just hitting one target, or if you're off by just a fraction, you don't get that final hit. It is going to get that final hit. That's nice. All right, Hypertoxin Grenade. Let me talk about this skill for a minute, because it's pretty amazing in actual combat. I can't really show it off too well here with the dummies, but what it does is you're going to roll out a grenade. Anything it hits is going to be affected by that toxin. They're also going to be affected by the vulnerability, which causes them to take extra damage from Grievous Wounds. So you're going to want to probably use this before throwing out Unleash Glaive, like that, because they're going to take extra damage from that Grievous Wounds. Now, when they are hit by this Hypertoxin Grenade, they're going to gain that toxin effect that if they die, they then explode for just as much damage as the Hypertoxin Grenade did itself, which will allow you to, every 6 seconds, just about, clear out half the screen. It's pretty nice. If you're using this on a geared blade character, you can do amazing things AoE-wise with this skill right here. You just throw this out, and then maybe you throw one of your other ranged attacks, which sets off a chain reaction of death. It's pretty amazing. Moving on to the Daywalker tree, we've got the Serum, we talked about that, and its interaction with Thirst. Deadly Dash is just going to do some physical damage and apply a dodge buff. It's got a buff duration of 5 seconds. There it is. It's a pretty nice dash. As far as dash travel speeds go, I mean, this is on par with...
Let me prepare.
Let's see, War Machine or something like that. It's not quite as amazing as, say, what Miss Marvel's old Warbird one was pretty cool, or I think Rogue's dash is pretty nice, or Star-Lord has a great dash. And it's actually very similar with Star-Lord's and War Machine. War Machine's the most direct translation, I think, for this dash. Anyway, it's a decent dash power, but you're probably not going to be using this to do damage or even gain that dodge chance. Maybe you will, to gain that dodge chance. The Ride is going to be his travel power, but something's... I don't know if it's me, but the speed seems slow. Maybe it's just here in Test Center, because it actually, when I'm out in the world, this bike moves a bit faster. But this is going to be your go-to travel power. It costs no spirit. You just hop on the bike and go. Very similar to Wolverine or Cyclops or what have you. Cyclops does have his bike now, right? Pretty sure Cyclops got his bike. Alright, anyway. Long-lived damage rating, critical hit rating, and brutal strike rating, as well as health on melee hit. This is also going to be your CC breaker. It's going to allow you to gain some extra life on hit from using the melee tree. Causing, because melee is up there in the thick of it. A lot of times you're taking a lot more damage than a ranged character would. So this is going to help offset that. Here's the scaling on that real quick. It's pretty decent offensive passive. And then finally, we've got UV Grenade and Party Crasher. UV Grenade is the same as it was when it was initially created. It's going to do some physical damage and apply vulnerability. Also a stun. There you go. You just throw out it's got a great effect on it, I think. It's going to throw out that UV grenade and stun everything in the area and apply that vulnerability. Now, the new one we've got here is Party Crasher. Now, it's going to share a cooldown with UV grenade, but that's okay because generally, I mean, it does the same function, but you're going to be using this in a melee build and probably UV grenade in a range build. Party Crasher is that first bit of the initial melee signature has been pulled off, and now he's just got that dash, or that leap, rather, doing some physical damage and applying that vulnerability, as well as a Terrify. Now, Terrify isn't quite stun, but they're mostly the same. This is still a resistible stun, so it won't stun bosses or anything like that. It's got that 6-second cooldown that it shares with UV Grenade. Alright, now finally, we've got the ultimate. Let's have one last look at this. Just Stay Down. It has been increased in damage as well as amazingness. It's got this final flourish with some grenades on it. But one cool thing about this is it's going to give you that +5 strength and speed for 20 seconds. Making it more than just a burst damage ultimate. It's also going to give you that increased damage output after using it. So let's have a look. Oh, that was the wrong skill. Alright, here we go. Well, good. We're bloodlusted. Amazing. So much damage output, and then the grenades, and you get the... Actually, I think I killed all the dummies. I can't even take advantage of that +5 strength and +5 speed that it gives you. That is awesome. You're also invulnerable for the duration of this power. Now, that invulnerability, I believe it extends to... It is the only invulnerability that extends to the thirst mechanic. Not 100% sure, but I didn't seem to be taking thirst damage while I was using Just Stay Down. I will have to test that a little bit more to be 100% sure, but you know, that would be something that I would want. That would be how I'd want it to work. I don't want to be taking thirst damage during the animation for this ultimate. Hopefully, if it does not already do that, they will add that to the ultimate skill. Alright, and that was one last look at Blade. Why don't we go ahead and have a look at some build ideas, just to round this out. Now, remember, this is very early. Very early. I mean, the character's not even out yet. But anyway, here's the ideas I've got for my melee build. And sort of what I've been doing. I got Glaive Orbit, 20 points. I got Any Means Necessary, 20 points. I got Stake Through the Heart, 20 points. I got Advanced Technique, 20 points. Then we've got... Now, this is where things get a little bit iffy. I am using Hypertoxin Grenade instead of Toxin-loaded gauntlets here. Now, this is going to be something I'm going to have to play around with. I'm not quite sold on it yet. Hypertoxin loaded grenades, or toxin loaded grenades rather, is going to give you a lot more single target damage output, but hypertoxin grenade, like I said, able to wipe out half the screen every 6 seconds. That's a pretty nice benefit. So I haven't quite given that up yet to go with the toxin loaded gauntlets. But I do have some nice AoE clear with Glaive Orbit, so I might be able to just do that toxin-loaded gauntlets. Anyway, we'll show off how this plays, and you'll see what I mean with Hypertoxin Grenade and why I'm having so much trouble giving it up. Serum. This is going to be my point dump after I put all my points everywhere else. They're going to come back to this defensive passives in Serum. Deadly Dash, just 1 point. Ride, just 1 point. 20 points in Long Live. Offensive passive, gotta have it. Party Crasher, 20 points. This is going to be my opener. And my basic rotation, something like this. Go in party crash. Alright, that now we'll just run through what all went down there. We got Party Crasher, we got Hypertoxin and Grenades, which then leads us into Glaive Orbit, because this will increase the damage of Glaive Orbit. Glaive Orbit will apply that bleed, which will increase the damage of Stake through the Heart. And finally, you want to use your signature anytime it's up for massive damage output. You're, of course, playing into your serum anytime you need to use the serum to get your thirst. Then you're going to do that. In fact, you might even want to save Advanced Technique for when you gain that increased damage output from the serum. Alright, so let's go run a Cosmic real quick and see how this does. I'm not too well versed with this build, so I may take a bit more damage than I'd like to. But I was doing a few Cosmics and it seemed to work out pretty well. My biggest thing is these stray hits. I also need to make sure that I choose a specialization, don't I? Now specializations, as far as now let's come over here so I can actually talk about this. The specializations is going to really come down to user preference. There's no right or wrong answer with these, I feel. Whether you want to be in control and be more tanky, or whether you want to use it only when necessary and gain that 5% or that 5 seconds of extra duration on that buff that it gives you, and also restore 30% of your maximum spirit. Again, like I was saying, there is the option if you go with only when necessary, then you could theoretically go with a different legendary here instead of Savage Axe's Varies. Or you could do Never Sated, which will allow you to just stay in thirst mode all the frickin' time. But for this, let's do thirst mode. Let's do Never Sated.
Put them to the blade.
Now with this Never Sated, we're gonna want to build that thirst up and then not use serum. It's gonna be pretty rough. Possibly. And if I had, I've got a decent amount of life on hit actually, so should be able to maintain this.
Come on, Eric.
Or at least until I've hit enough targets to gain that huge damage boost that you get from using the serum. You don't want to stay in Bloodlust mode. What you want to do is you want to get your thirst to maximum. And then you want to hit 10 times and then use the serum. Keep getting animation locked. I thought I used my signature there. Alright, there we go.
It is our hour to strike.
Wow. I think that was like 90% my signature that did all that damage. Alright, well that's a little bit of the melee build. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I could really spend the next couple of hours probably going on about, you know, different theorycraft ideas for builds and what would be best. But let's move on to the ranged alternative. And I am using the same gear mostly for all of these builds. This is just his uniques. Crit damage on the costume. Now, one thing you definitely want to get as soon as you can is the regenerate health and spirit on medkit. This is almost imperative. The life on hit, not so much, but still amazing. You probably want to get that. And then, of course, round it off with the trifecta for invulnerability. But if you can get this 2 out of 3, then you're sitting pretty, and you can do whatever you want with that third affix there on your costume. Now, his uniques are all really solid. They've all got plus to all powers on them. But if you're doing the range build, it seems like there's not enough plus to tools of the trade. So you might have to look into options to maybe I've just got a low roll on one of my skills here, one of my items. Yeah, it looks like this one can roll up to 7. So I'm missing +2 to tools of the trade. That's the slot 3. And then I'm missing, I think this one is most of your, no, this is your toxin stuff. Unleash grenade. Nope. Alright, so you're probably going to have to maybe look into a way to get more plus skills for your tools of the trade tree. I don't know if you really can, though, as +3 all powers on all of your items here is pretty nice, and I don't think any of the any hero uniques are going to compete. I'm not sure. I'll have to play around with different build ideas. But anyway, as far as the skills go, this is going to be what you want to use. You want to use a pump action, physical damage, do that Unleash Glaive, 20 points, do that Stake Thrower, 20 points, 20 points in the Namesake, and 20 points in Hypertoxin Grenade. Point Dump in Serum, 1 point Deadly Dash, 1 point Ride, 20 points Long Lived, 20 points UV Grenade, and then I like to keep 1 point in Party Crasher just so I can jump over obstacles and whenever I need to. Alright, so let's go have a look at what the ranged build looks like. Now you can see the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to open with that vulnerability applicator, which is the UV grenade. It's going to be mostly the same as the melee build as far as my bar goes. That UV grenade, the, if I can get safe. I think I forgot to apply my, here we go, alright. Oh, not quite. There we go, 2 more. Alright. That UV grenade, that hypertoxin grenade is next up. Putting on that increased damage from grievous wounds. Then you throw that Unleash Glaive out to apply that bleed. Finally hit with Stake Thrower for big burst damage. And then of course you've got your signature that you want to use every time it's off cooldown. I've got my Party Crasher here on my right click switch. And of course your fallback is your pump action when everything else is either on cooldown or you've got your buff applied or whatever. You're going to fall back onto pump action for that single target damage output.
Shroud them in a cloak.
And I probably don't actually need to run through my full rotation on these lieutenants.
Make them fear us. Drown them in the deep.
Alright, there we go. He's got that invulnerability shield. And of course, we're going to take 80% less damage while we're using that signature. That'll be nice. Oh, wow. Didn't I say earlier that I didn't apply a... Can't choose this in combat. That's unfortunate. Alright, so we're doing this speckless. It's not a good indication of how the build works, is it? Of course, you're a ranged character, so moving out of those melee hits is definitely going to be something you want to do. You're going to take a lot less. You can see here, he's taking a lot less damage than the melee build would. Alright, this pumpkin buff. We'll talk about that in another video, I think. Alright, and that's a little look at what the range build's like. You're going to be, dashing out of those melee hits, keeping them at range, and still the same rotation, basically, whether you're in melee or ranged. Remember, guys, these builds are all very early test center. And just one last look at the gear. All of his uniques, that's what I'm using. And I'll try to, come up with better ideas for what items you might want to replace here. And I might throw something up on marvelheroes.info if I get the time. We'll see. But, definitely the Gem of the Curse is going to have a place. The Advanced Crimson Crystal of Sidorak is incredibly valuable for the rarity, like for the commonness of this item. It's incredibly good, giving you huge amounts of health and some physical damage rating. But eventually, even this will get replaced. But the first things I would replace, like this white suit jacket, not too great. Probably throw in lizard formula, definitely lizard formula. Gotta have a lizard formula. My spirit management is one of the key things that I'm sort of missing right now as far as gear goes. So definitely a lizard formula, and then an Iron Legion sheath, and I don't know what else. Yeah, I haven't tried. There's a new artifact that comes off of Blob that I want to play around with. I hear it's really good for strength or physical characters, so I might play around with that. But anyway, the artifacts are going to be sort of in flux, but definitely the power dupe, giving you that huge brutal damage. God of Mischief, also an option here. Or you can of course go budget and go with what? River Soul. River Soul is amazing on just about everybody. Crit damage on the relics. If you're not using this, then you're probably using all of your crit damage relics on some other character. So, whatever you want to put there is going to be suboptimal, but still maybe okay. Probably either whatever you're doing, ranged or melee. That's about it. Subterranea maybe if you need more defense. That's up to you, but really crit damage is the only option here. I have no idea on insignias. I kind of just threw on whatever I had in the stash here, but ideally you'd want crit rating and crit damage, and then a solid aura to go with it. You of course want your +3 fighting on your pet and your +2 melee or range powers. I don't know what the purples do here. But definitely the +8% base health if you can get it, and the +3 fighting are the huge things. And then of course crit damage on the costume. Alright guys, this video has gone on for way too long. I hope there has been some valuable information for some of you that have chosen to stick it out with me. I hope you have learned maybe something that will help you in enjoying this new hero Blade. Let's go ahead and look at the costume before we say goodbye to this video. That's the alternative costume for Blade. This is the Blade original costume. And one cool thing about this costume is that it will allow you to your stakes that you throw out with your skills. Like there's actually nothing to shoot here. Stake thrower. They're supposed to be wood. They're supposed to be wood. The daggers are wood. He actually uses wood daggers with his namesake skill. I don't know about the stake thrower. It doesn't look like he uses wood. But if you're in melee spec, then I think the stake through the heart is a wood dagger. Yep, it's a wood dagger. So that's one cool thing about this. The sword is also different. The sword is slightly different on that costume. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope you have enjoyed this second look at Blade. He has changed quite extensively. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to rate, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one, where we'll probably be going over this Halloween event and how it has changed since last year. I'll see you there. Take it easy. Have a good one. Peace.